Well, good afternoon. My name is Mike Snelly, and I'll serve as a co-moderator in today's session. Welcome back to the Shackelford Lecture Series. And by the way, before I forget, please see our website. We also have in-person events planned yet for 2022 as we slowly crawl out of our COVID debacle. So we're going to kind of have a hybrid approach for the rest of the year, which I'm very excited about. Before I forget, of course, I want to go ahead and be sure that I'm acknowledging Charles Shackelford and Linda Shackelford for their ongoing support of this Shackelford Lecture Series. We appreciate you, Charles and Linda. And also want to thank Donna Dollins and Peter Harwell and Dwayne Hunter and Craig Woods and many other people that I'm probably not remembering off the top of my head that helped me behind the scenes to make this happen on a monthly basis. So thank you all to my colleagues. And again, make sure that you look, speaking of our website, make sure that you look at our website so you can get these dates for the lecture series on your calendar, because love to have you live versus a YouTube down the road, because that way you get in on the Q&A on your end with the speakers. So please do that if you haven't already. And very excited about our lecture today. It's a slight deviation from what I printed earlier, but it's still the same gist of what you were hoping for. It's going to be on monarchs and global issues and local solutions. Very excited to have Bill Farris back today. I think his first time for me virtually. So, of course, Bill was co-owner with Sally Farris, Prairie Wind Growers for literally decades, and now is in a little bit different role, which I'll let him talk about if he's willing at his talk today. And I was thinking driving into work today, I've known Bill for a long time. I think I met him in 1990 or 1991, and Bill and Sally Farris have been Greenhouse Growers of the Year. Bill has served at least one time, if not multiple times, as an officer of the Oklahoma Native Plant Society. I already mentioned his long-term involvement with Prairie Wind Nursery. What I like about Bill is not only is he knowledgeable about our native plant materials, but he can also address all of our adapted non-native plants as well that we can grow here in Oklahoma and surrounding states. And again, I'm hoping that Bill will also tell us about some of the gigs that he's got planned throughout the summer around the state, so we can physically meet up with him on some of these weekend assignments that he has, perhaps other times during the week. And so, Bill, I'm going to ask you to talk about that as well today, if you would. And on that note, I'm just actually going to go ahead and turn it over to Bill Farris. Bill, we're grateful to have you, and the floor is yours.
Glad to be here, Mike. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I hope we're in for a better 22 than we had on the 21. I'm going to jump right into the program here, and if we've got time at the end of this, and we get some question and answers, and we've kind of changed up what we're doing these days, and I'll explain that a little bit at the end. But today we want to talk about monarch butterflies. And we got a couple of different questions that we want to answer. One is, where are the monarchs? And then the second question is, what's going on with the monarchs and what can we do about it? So where are the monarchs? Well, there's several populations of monarchs around the world, and I didn't know this until started doing research a couple of years ago on the monarchs. Now there are monarchs, let's see, they're colonized in New Zealand, Costa Rica, Hawaii, and Spain, and they were all originally North American monarchs, and there were some dispersal events, and I've got to do more research to find out what these dispersal events were, but I assume it would be some sort of weather event that scattered the monarchs around the world. They are all definitely from North America in the beginning. So now here in the monarchs that are in other parts of the world have developed a little bit differently than the original monarchs here. Now that we have a monarch population on the California coast, and it does migrate, but just within the West Coast there. And it's not really distinctively different than the monarchs that are east of the Rockies. So just that was some pretty curious information for me to learn about these other populations around the country, around the world, that do not migrate. So what's special about Oklahoma? Well, all of the monarchs east of the Rocky Mountains depend on finding milkweeds and nectar plants when they migrate through Texas and Oklahoma. And as many of you probably know, the I-35 corridor is the main highway for the monarch butterfly as well. So some of them do veer off east a little sooner, but the vast majority of them do come right up I-35 right through the central part of Oklahoma. As you can see by the map here that indicates the flight patterns as they move their way north. And the area in red, that's where they spend the summer, up around the Great Lakes in the Midwest for the most part, even on up into Canada. And we go, okay. As you can see by the graph, the monarch population has been in decline for quite some time, since the mid-90s, in a general decline with some ups and downs in there. And one of the thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Western population in California, I did some checking with Monarch Watch, and I get last year, they had a significant increase in that population. It had gone from somewhere around 2,000 monarchs to about 250,000 monarchs. So that was a good sign there. As best I could tell from Chip Taylor at Monarch Watch, they're still trying to determine what the population is in central Mexico for this year. The Western monarchs, yeah, it's what I was talking about. We're in a state of crisis, but there has been some good news this year. Okay, ancient problems are the storms, the weather, unfavorable winds, those sorts of things that we can't do anything about. Now, a butterfly goes through a complete, or monarch rather, goes through a complete metamorphosis. And a complete metamorphosis, the insect goes through 4 distinct stages. They are egg, larva, pupa, and the adult. Now, the larva and adult are very different in appearance. The adult lays eggs, eggs hatch into larvae, larvae feed, molt several times before pupating, and while pupating, the tissues of the larva break down and reform into the adult insect. The adult then emerges from the pupa. And there's just a little picture of the life cycle. That's a 4th instar. They can get to be pretty good sized caterpillars compared to what they are when they first come out of emerge from the egg. Okay, predators, invertebrates like wasps and spiders take a large number of the caterpillars. OE, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that the full scientific name of this. It's a parasitic kind of bacteria that gets on the milkweed plants, then onto okay. Am I back on?
Yes, you are, Bill.
Okay. Don't know where I lost you at there, but the OE is a disease of the monarch butterflies. It hangs out on perennial populations. When I say perennial, I'm talking about down South Texas, down into Mexico, where the plants don't ever die off. Up here in Oklahoma, because our plants are, they are perennial for the most part, but they die off and are dormant through the wintertime. The OE doesn't hang around here. So there's a debate going on about whether or not we should be growing tropical milkweed because it does host the OE. And from conversations with Chip Taylor, all of the milkweed that we can provide is the best way to go. But the thing is, if you grow in the tropical milkweed, don't overwinter it. Just let it grow up until frost and let the frost kill it or pull it out. And you don't want to hang on to it too long, because there's some folks out there that think that if the food source is around, that it'll cause the butterflies to hang around longer than they should instead of moving on south. So, come mid-October, so dump that tropical milkweed, cut it back and get rid of it so that it won't encourage those adult monarchs on the way back to Mexico to hang around too long and get caught by the cold weather. Okay, there's just some of the predators of the monarchs. Wasps and spiders, praying mantis. Storms have different levels of impacts depending on the season and the location. Monarchs are concentrated in their overwintering grounds. Icy storms have the biggest potential to kill a large percentage of the migratory population. Now, from what I understand is the monarchs are adapted. They can handle the cold pretty well, and they can handle the wet fairly well, but they can't handle wet and cold conditions. And that's what seems to get them these kind of surprise storms, sleet storms, snowstorms that come in, especially in the late before they head up north. Storms can, they're pretty devastating, but usually for just a small area. But the area down there where the monarchs are going to spend the winter is not that large of an area. And the Mexican officials sometimes discourage negative reports on the population. There's a lot of problems down in that area that are not weather related. So this I guess you would call that a vase or pot, bowl, that's full of monarchs that were killed in the winter storm of 2002 and collected from several sites. But as you can see, what this sleet storm can do to them, the monarchs would just fall from the trees and are lying on the ground. Pretty sad to see. And this is from a sleet storm in March of 2016. Okay, the modern problems in Mexico are illegal logging, and I don't understand why they can't put a stop to that, but it seems to be an ongoing thing. Farming practices changing down there as well. Lost habitat in the Midwest and elsewhere. We're going to talk a little more about that. And of course, pesticide use, and really herbicide use more than pesticide use is becoming an issue, or has become an issue. Climate change could affect the monarch's success in many ways, including changing conditions in the overwintering grounds, failing to provide enough chill time to reset the migratory compass, increasing frequency and severity of winter storms due to Pacific warming, changing the bloom times of needed nectar plants, changing active periods of other insects that are needed for pollinating the nectar plants. This is a picture of some of the logging that goes on down in Mexico, and they're getting pretty serious about that down there, the illegal logging, that is. Sources of the habitat loss within the milkweed and monarch corridor. Development, and this is the one that I have a really big problem with personally, and I can go on and on and on and on about how ridiculous the ethanol business is, but the conversion of Conservation Reserve Program CRP lands to croplands due to the Renewable Fuel Standards law is a big issue. Loss of hedgerows between small farms, broadleaf control and pastures, roadsides, etc. Other factors, just highway developments and housing and all that sort of stuff is just eating up the habitat at a phenomenal rate. Okay, this is a picture, an aerial photograph of a farm near Wanda, Minnesota. As you can see, now that area right now grows basically soybeans and corn. They rotate. Both of those they spray Roundup on. They're Roundup ready. But as you can see, there's one little area of trees. There may be a little drainage there, and in the lower right hand of the screen, there's a little drainage area there. And other than that, there's no open lands, no woodlands, no place for wildflowers to go anywhere, pollinator plants to grow. This is a larger area. Each of those squares would be a mile section. And you can see I've been up there, or at least in Illinois, and they farm right up to the edge of the pavement in most places, even through the bar ditch. So there's not any place for habitat left in a lot of these areas for miles and miles and miles. Okay, this shows the estimated agricultural use of glyphosate or Roundup in 1996. And you can see in Oklahoma, see how light is. So we're like 4.2 pounds per square mile. And then there was significantly more, 21 to 88 pounds up in the kind of the Great Lakes, Midwest area, some of that up to that much. So here's what it looks like now. This is in all of that red area up there in the north, that's exactly where the monarchs hang out for the summertime. So that's 88 pounds plus pounds of glyphosate per square mile in 2012, and I'm sure it's even more than that now, but still not so much in Oklahoma. And where it has increased is out west, where not so many of the monarchs go. They tend to bear a little bit east as they come through Oklahoma, so it's not so bad here. Now, if you can see where this graph intersects there, that's about 96, 97. You can see the population decline as the glyphosate use increased. The widespread planting of genetically modified seeds and subsequent use of glyphosate-based herbicides to control weeds in those fields has eliminated milkweed from at least 100 million acres of row crops and growing. Where nectar plants, milkweed, still exist in good numbers, they can be separated from the next patch by large distances. Habitat fragmentation is a critical problem for both urban and rural areas. Insects like the monarch exist on a razor's edge situation where they must struggle to intake enough nutrients to provide the energy they need to complete their life cycle. Monarchs can't afford the energy to fly to the next patch if it's too far away, and that can lead to reduced breeding success. And I don't want to sound like I'm being critical. I have heard people say, well, I'm going to plant 2,000 milkweeds, and that's great. But if they're planting it all in one area, it would be much, much better if we could get 2,000 people to plant one milkweed so that it's dispersed over a much broader area. Erosion of riverbanks and stream sides, where, and a lot of this has to do with issues of, storm drainage coming out of cities where you get concrete drainages that then speed the water up when it does get into the natural drainage areas and causes washout. So we lose a lot of the natural habitat along our stream sides and banks. The agriculture, horticulture, commercial, and homeowners, most pesticides are non-specific and target a wide range of insects and invertebrates. The term organic has a legal meaning and does not mean that plants or produce are grown without pesticides. It means only certain naturally derived pesticides may be used, and they're still deadly pesticides for insects. Most of the chemicals that I've seen that are for the organic research, OMRI, is some sort of a pyrethrin derivative. So it's still a chemical. It's just deemed organic or safe for human consumption, I guess. the use of a special class of insecticides has been on the rise, the neonicotinoids, and I'm not really sure if that's still increasing or not, because I think people have gotten the idea this neonicotinoids will kill basically anything that eats on that plant. And some of the farmers are using neonicotinoids to coat seeds with, to keep insects from eating the seeds before they get sprouted or while they're in storage. Growers in the horticulture industry are using neonics to ship good looking but deadly plants to big box stores and small nurseries alike. Plants are often labeled with a misleading positive spin on the treatment. Excuse me. Only diligent questioning and continuous pressure applied can you make sure of buying clean plants for your garden. And that means, you know, the best thing to do is buy it from a local grower that you trust. Let's see. Now the GMOs, glyphosate, tolerant corn and soybeans, economics of renewable fuel standards, conversion of rangeland and grasslands to croplands for biofuels. Development, we lose 1.24 million acres a year. Am I unmuted now? Okay, development,
Yes.
we lose 1.24 million acres a year to development. You know, the intensive agriculture reduces field margins down to almost nothing. That's what I was referring to earlier up in the corn and soybean country. They don't even have fences up there because they don't run cattle. They just farm right up to the edge of the roadway. Management of marginal lands with herbicides, insecticide, mosquito control, degradation of overwintering habits in Mexico, unfavorable conditions during you know, breeding season, and well, there we go. What can we do about it? Reduce or eliminate personal pesticide use, refrain from mowing milkweeds in the spring, plant real nectar plants for the spring migration, and plant native milkweeds. Now, it's my personal opinion that there's probably enough in our part of the world, in Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, there's probably enough nectar plants in the wild in the springtime, but what we really need to focus on is our fall blooming plants like the, you know, cowpen daisy and the asters and those sorts of things that will be blooming late into the season in the fall is where we really need to help the adults on the return trip. And of course, planting native milkweeds as far and wide as you can. You could also do your own Monarch way station. If y'all are not familiar with Monarch Watch, you need to check them out. You can get your own Monarch way station sign and be registered with Monarch Watch. So some people say, well, I hear you, but I can't really help. I don't have any space, or I live in an apartment building, and that's not really true. You can, the tropical milkweeds do very well, and they're very ornamental too. They bloom all season long, so everybody can do a little bit of something. But even just a few handful of nectar plants is going to be a help. You know, if you just have a little space at all, even if it's just pots. The small spaces, if there's enough of them, can make a big difference to these plants. All right, there's just a shot of some blue mist. Quite a few monarchs there. One of the things that we get into, and I've had this discussion many times with farmers and ranchers here in Oklahoma. So the pesticide companies, the salesmen, started this basically rumor, this story that, you got to get rid of that milkweed out in the pastures. Your cows eat it, it'll kill them. Well, I was raised on a ranch, and I've got cattle right now, and I've got milkweed on my place. And I'm here to tell you that a cow will not eat milkweed unless she is flat out starving to death. So if your cattle are eating milkweed, you've got bigger issues than a few milkweeds in your pasture, because it tastes terrible to them. And the only time that if you look on the I've Googled this a jillion times, and you cannot find any documented incidents of milkweed poisoning in cattle. And from what I've been able to determine, it would take somewhere between, I believe it was 10% of a cow's weight to kill her. So we're talking about she's going to have to eat 100 pounds of milkweed to kill her. And there's not that much milkweed out there, I don't believe, for them to find that much. But anyway, that's one of the issues with, and people will just argue to death with you over not having milkweed in their cow pastures. But it's just one of those things that people say, well, why did they believe that? It's what chemical salesmen have to sell chemicals to make a living, and that they will do whatever they have to do, kind of like politicians wanting to get elected. And for more information, join monarchjointventure.org, monarchwatch.org, Okies for Monarchs. Okies for Monarchs is on Facebook. And that really concludes the presentation. And if you want to open it up for questions, Mike, I'm ready.
Absolutely. And be thinking of some additional questions. And Bill, let's go ahead and though tackle what's already on the chat feature. And of course, before I forget, and I already prefaced this by saying, remind us how we stay in touch with you this summer, Bill, where we can physically catch up with you.
Well,
on some of your...
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but really just go to our website. And it's Prairie Wind Nursery .square.site. Or on Facebook, Prairie Wind Nursery. And we have mostly April and May, we're booked out. We've still got some openings that we haven't decided for in June where we're going to be. But what we've done, well, I'll back up here a little bit. Sally and I decided that it was time to stop and smell the lavender a little bit and slow down. We've just decided that it was time to kind of kick back and enjoy it a little bit more. So what we've done, we sold the nursery there in Norman to some marijuana growers. And I have put up a couple of smaller greenhouses here at home where we live, which is, different location. And I plan to be at a farmer's market, a pop-up market, or a festival or event somewhere every weekend between the 1st of April, 2nd of April, rather, through June. Some weekends I'm doing 2 different locations, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. But to kick off with, we'll be in Norman at Stash there on East Main Street, not too far from where the new farmer's market's going to be. And then I think the 3rd, which would be Sunday afternoon, will be at Will Rogers Park with Monica Arndt is putting on a little plant sale pop-up market there. Of course, we'll be at Sand Springs Herbal Affair, Jinx, Urban Plant Festival, the OKC Flower and Garden Festival at the Myriad on May 8th, and then always at Will Rogers Park. I think that's the 21st or 2nd. But anyway, you can go to the Facebook page or our web page and see where we're going to be every weekend. Of course, obviously, we've downsized quite a bit. Won't have quite the variety of plants that I used to have, but mostly what I've tried to do is drop the non-native stuff for the most part, and just concentrating on our culinary herbs. And I might say one thing that folks should consider: a lot of the culinary herbs that we grow, especially the ones from Middle East, in Europe, the rosemaries, the lavenders, sage, and those sorts of things, they're really great for the honeybees, because honeybees are European in origin to begin with. So those are great pollinator plants for your honeybees, and not being natives. So that's kind of where we're at on the, for the future. We'll do some questions.
Bill, I want to hit glyphosate again because a couple of people jumped in. And so just first of all, can you see the chat feature, or do I need to read it?
I do now. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Take a look. Just to save time, jump down to Dennis Martin's comment, only because Sharon, it will dovetail into what Sharon McAllister mentioned as well. And
let's see.
And I can read that if for some reason it doesn't toggle down for you.
Well, it's not. Let me expand here.
So, Bill, as you're looking, go ahead.
Okay, Dennis Martin. Okay, Dennis it is critical to also understand that glyphosate, while being used in glyphosate-resistant crops, is an essential management tool in environmental restoration. Environmental restoration professionals attest to their use of it in invasive species management. Is being used in spot treatment, injection, and wiper application for removal of invasive species to increase quality of invertebrate habitat in natural areas. And I agree. And I am not one of these never Roundup folks. I think that judicious, prudent use of Roundup is all right, especially if you're going to go in, if you want to put in a prairie turf type lawn and you've got Bermuda grass, to go in on a one time and kill that Bermuda grass, get rid of it and replace it with buffalo grass or another native grass. I'm all for that. But when it's wholesale spraying of hundreds of thousands of acres, whole states of Illinois and Indiana up there are just almost completely covered with Roundup ready corn and soybeans. That's my problem with it. If you're going to, trim around the edges of something with a little Roundup, I don't have a problem with that personally.
Thank you. Excellent. And then Bill, Holly West asked you, commented. Can you see Holly's comment?
Yes.
I can read. Go ahead if you want to tackle that as well, please.
Okay. Can everybody see the question?
I'll just read it back if you would, please.
I have a small amount of unused, ungrazed pasture, 2+ acres. I would like to keep as natural as possible as wildlife habitat. However, I need to have some of it brush hogged this year to decrease the fire hazard potential. What time of year and how often would it be recommended to do in clearing activity and still support monarch habitat? Right now, before things start growing, and then if you need to, you could do it after frost in the fall. But if you need to do it or want to do it this year, I would get on it ASAP. We do have some cold weather coming in. That'll keep most of everything from popping too early, but I would just get it done at ASAP, and then you'll get that nice spring flush on all the grasses and the spring native flowers.
Thank you. And you see Dr. Martin jumped in and thanked you for addressing the glyphosate and agrees with you. That's awesome.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, you and I have had this conversation over the phone a couple of times. Remind me though, so it's a big country, and we have, of course, the Sclepius species that are in the lower 48, but not indigenous right here per se. You are open to those, though, correct?
Yes.
Anything that will, yeah, that's what I thought. And there's no evidence.
I had this conversation with Skip Taylor 4 or 5 years ago, and it's basically right now, any Asclepius that you can get planted or potted or grow is going to help, because it came up in the discussion about whether or not to plant the tropical milkweed, and it's as long as I don't have a problem with it as long as you are pulling it up or doing away with it in the fall and not trying to keep it over into the next season, because that's when you have GOE. Yeah. But yes, I'm working some with a young man that is named Scott Peak, who is a storm chaser by trade, but he's also a milkweed monarch nerd, and he has the opportunity traveling around the country he finds milkweed patches, and so a lot of times he'll bring me seed from those, and we're going to start trying to grow out more of these. And this all got delayed because of our move from the other nursery. So nothing's happened for the last year in that respect, but I intend to start up again as soon as possible and bring in some of these. He brought me a Sclepius texensis, which I'd never seen before, which is a beautiful, beautiful plant. Some of the other milkweed vines, Metellea biflora, and some of the more obscure stuff that you never see or hear of.
Thank you. Bill, Lynn Wilson just jumped in and say she and her family, they raise hay, so we do spray our fields, but have several acres where we do not spray. Is it okay to plant milkweed in those areas, even though they are surrounded by sprayed areas?
Yes. Yes, that's not going, because you're not going to have anything in that hay field that's going to attract the monarchs out there anyway.
Okay, thank you. Seeing what I might have overlooked. Don't be shy, people. Jump in and give us some more questions. Bill, going down memory lane while I'm waiting here, I remember you migrated from California. So did you come here in 89, 90, something like that, or even before then?
Well, I was born in Texas and raised I got to Oklahoma as fast as I could. I was 6 years old when we moved across the line, which was only a move of about 30 miles. But anyway, okay. In 1980s, I was doing construction and trying to farm a little bit. And, the oil boom went bust and I had to get out of here and find a job. And I wound up just by chance and I lived in Los Angeles 87 and 88 into 89. Met Sally out there, and I'd already had the idea that I wanted to start a nursery business and didn't know what I wanted to grow really at that point in time. But anyway, Sally was all on board. So we packed up our bags and moved back here in 89 and went to our first greenhouse growers conference in Stillwater that year.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because speaking of adapted non-natives, Sally got me started on ashwagandha all those years ago. Wow, it seems like yesterday. That's awesome. Hey, we have some more questions, Bill. So Leslie Johnson, my friend Leslie Johnson asked, milkweed vines, information on where to find.
I'm probably going to be the only source that, unless maybe Marilyn Stewart has some here at Oklahoma. I don't know of anyone else. And we're talking about the Cyantium, the blue vine. There's another one that I can't, that Scott brought me out of North Texas that I can't remember the name on. Metellea biflora is something that's in that milkweed family. It's not really an Sclepius, but it will host the caterpillars, and I would probably be the only source on that. I'm probably not going to have any of it this spring, maybe have some in the fall, just because of logistics of all the moving and stuff. I'm behind. I haven't gotten saw everything done that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Bill, I like Roberta Rain's comment or question about how about home raising monarchs, just raising some to supplement the population.
People do that. I know Sandy Schwinn does that. There's a lot of other people that do. There's some concern that the ones that are raised at home aren't maybe quite as hardy and healthy as the ones from out in nature, that where they've got to fight a little harder for their living out there. But I think under the circumstances right now, it's kind of like the planting of milkweed in the tropicals. It's just like anything we can do to increase the populations. We need to try to do it.
Okay. One of our landscape architects, Connie Scothorn, writes, do you have a list of plants? Yeah. Do you have a list of plants that'll be available for sale? And if so, can we make special requests?
I'm working on getting the list on the website. I just finished up kind of paring down my herb list and started working on my perennial list. So it should be on the website here within a couple of weeks, hopefully.
Okay, excellent. So Stephanie writes, I just wanted to add, as if it was a good explanation for me, though not about monarchs, when you treat for grubs, you're also treating all of the firefly larvae that we all love so much, and are wondering what happened to them. If someone wants to treat for grubs, make sure you actually have them. Yeah, so she's
good idea. Yeah,
that does make a lot of sense to have a reason to go after something rather than just making assumptions. Sharon McAllister writes, are you still growing out plants suitable for rain gardens, Bill?
I'm sure that I'd have to think about that for a minute, but yeah, I'm sure that there will be.
Okay. Hey, I'm learning from Barbara Klein. This one I haven't done. This is on my bucket list. So regarding milkweed being poisonous, my mom and I would pick and eat small seed pods while on our nature hikes. You know by taste and texture when that's not a good idea. Also, they may be less poisonous up north. A couple of guys' theories. They taste like raw peas.
Well, yeah, could be, but it made me think of a little bit of trivia, milkweed trivia. So that white fluffy stuff that's in the seed pod is called coma, and in World War II, they had all the farm kids go out in the country and collect those seeds because that coma was used to stuff their flotation devices for the military.
Okay.
It's pretty.
Sorry.
No, I thought that was a pretty unique use of the coma.
Yeah, that is. Sandy writes, glyphosate can create drift that could affect nearby milkweed plantings. I can attest to a neighbor that sprays her Bermuda lawn and has killed one entire section of my Monarch waste station. So yeah, Sandy. A lot of careless people out there.
Bill, do you want to replied with finastrum, and that's what I was trying to think of the name a minute ago. I couldn't gone blank on me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Bill, can you see Janet Horner?
You're if you've got neighbors that don't care, if they're out there spraying anything on windy days, I mean, that's just very unprofessional, inconsiderate, but there's so many people out there. You're starting to see the blue and blue lawns out there where people are putting out their pre-emergence now. And, they're killing off all of the henbit, which is one of the good, pollinators, early pollinators for the monarchs and other insects. But there are some people out there that just cannot get it through their head that you don't have to do that. They want that Bermuda grass lawn to look like a pool table, and we've got to get away from that sort of thing. And that's a whole nother topic there that I'm really working on, is what I call low mow and no mow lawns, using alternatives like sedges in the shady areas and native grasses in the sunny areas. And we need to really start trying to promote those ideas rather than this Bermuda grass carpet.
Yeah. And I think we all agree with you, Janet Horner. We need to encourage people to concentrate on establishing more pollinator gardens with native plants. Absolutely. Bill, can you see Roberta Raines? You want to tackle that or comment on that?
That's a lot of coma. I don't know if all of them had milkweed coma in them or not, but that's a bunch.
Yeah, 1.2 million life jackets. That's interesting. I'd not seen that statistic before. Thank you, Roberta. Donna, help me. Am I overlooking any of the chat? Maybe that I've.
Well, no, I think that's it so far, unless someone adds another question.
I would go back to Janet Horner's comment there. You're exactly right. And, it doesn't take that large of a spot. You can do what my landscaper friends call a prairie pocket, in a space that's, 3-4 feet square, a 4x4 square, just a little corner. If you'll put some native grasses and some, echinacea, rudbeckia, some asters, the gaillardias, those sorts of things in a little area like that, that would, if every household that has a yard would take, a 4x4, 6x6 corner of their yard and plant some native plants and some grasses in there for cover, problem solved.
Yeah,
Even
Janet Horner. Go ahead.
Yeah, even patio pots. Yes, I'm big on patio pots.
Absolutely. Every bit helps.
And that's what one of the things with the tropical milkweed, because it grows, it's so erect and grows straight up. You can plant it in the middle of the pot and then plant other nectar plants around it. And going back to nectar plants, one of the things, the caterpillars eat the leaves, but the tuberosa, the butterfly milkweed, it's an excellent nectar plant for not only for adult monarchs, but honeybees and native bees, all sorts of insects. So it's not just for the caterpillars.
Okay. Bill, do you see Sharon McAllister's?
I'm reading it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So an annual, Bermuda, I agree on the Bermuda grass carpet. I've been sowing annual rye in the fall and Bermuda grass lawn to improve soil tilt, drainage, and choke out the weeds. We have less weed pressure than the neighbors who spray. Yes, that's a very good idea. There's another one from Roberta, is how to establish a buffalo grass lawn. So this is a little bit tricky. I love buffalo grass, and we used to have it native buffalo grass on the ranch where I grew up at. The problem with buffalo grass is it will not persist in really sandy soils, which is what I have here in eastern Cleveland County now. Down south where I grew up in Jefferson County, we had about a big thick layer of red brick making clay underneath the topsoil, and it would thrive in that, but it will not persist. And so what we do up here, or what I recommend doing up here, is going with a blend of buffalo grass, blue grama, and side oats grama, and those will establish themselves. They'll all sprout, all come up and establish and give you a good thick cover right away. But whatever grass prefers your soil will dominate over a period of time, and it will be the dominant grass in your lawn.
Yeah. We just happen to have, Dr. Dennis Martin online, and he's gotten really good with buffalo grass over the last couple of decades, just through conversations, through some of his publications I've read. Also, he and his wife, Karen Martin, have a buffalo grass lawn at their residence here in Stillwater. So stay in touch with Dr. Martin as well for additional thoughts and opinions and feedback on buffalo grass.
In one of my other presentations, I have some photographs of a Bermuda grass lawn that's in Nichols Hills in Oklahoma City. And the thing with Bermuda or buffalo grass, if you never mow it, it still doesn't look bad. It doesn't get, all that tall and rangy looking. It just looks like a nice blue-green, sea of grass out there. You just want to walk on it barefooted. But, mowing it 2 or 3 times in a season at the most, it just saves you, this is getting off to a different subject here, but just think of how many millions of gallons, and I've got these statistics, I just don't have them in front of me, millions of gallons of gas are burned up mowing lawns in the United States every year, not only in the trucks transporting them back and forth, from one lawn to the other, but the lawnmowers and weed eaters themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Good points. Other questions for Bill Farris? Thoughts? Yeah, I love Janet Horner's comment that she said, Bill, I tell people we need to rethink pretty. Absolutely do.
And exactly. We've kind of been sold this idea. The camera's not on, so it's really hard for me to demonstrate this, but I had a lady come up to me one time at a market, and she says, "You're that guy that does all the wild stuff." And she was shaking her hands up in the air, and I didn't know exactly what she meant at first. And she was talking about the native plants, and I thought maybe she was talking about other wild stuff initially, but she just looked me right in the eye and she said, "I don't do that." She said, she wanted that formal look to it, the square edges and all that.
Yeah.
And that's just never been a look that's appealed to me. I always want something that looked natural, to me, rather than that, all squared up and it's just a different type of look, having something that looks natural as opposed to something that's just very formal looking.
Yep. Couldn't agree more with you on that. Other feedback for Bill?
How many folks have we got online today?
I show 59 participants.
Cool.
That's really good because there's a lot of Zoom fatigue out there these days. So
Boy,
congrats.
Isn't that the truth? I appreciate you folks tuning in.
Actually,
Yeah.
before that, we had 65. So
Thank you, Donna.
Mhm.
Excellent. I hadn't paid attention. And of course, Bill, we're going to have you on YouTube for eternity so people can watch you at 3 a.m.
There you go.
Anytime they get lonesome to talk with you.
There's a few YouTube videos of me out there.
Yeah. You got some sweet nothings. Roberta Rains is praising you. Connie Scothorn. Thank you guys. Those were all really kind comments towards Bill.
Yeah, appreciate y'all. Look forward to seeing some of you come April.
Oh, I like that. Carla Smith says to add 15, we have a Master Gardener group watching. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Carla, for your
And
support.
I love Master Gardeners, all of you. I hope to see you at the convention this year.
Somebody just popped on something. I'm trying to get down to see it.
it says how to know which variety. Oops.
Oh, yeah.
Of Oklahoma native pollinator plants are really that native.
I've got a list, and when we had to move because we were having internet connection problems. I left my list laying in the other room. But go to monarchwatch.org. There's a big list there, and eventually I'll have a list on the website of the native plants that we grow that are good.
Okay. Excellent. The screen is popping around on me. I felt like somebody just. Oh, Cindy Irwin says, "Thank you for the presentation. Inspired me to plant more natives." That's great, Cindy.
Yeah, and then the thing about the natives, is they'll take care of themselves. They don't they don't require all the babying that the other I call them foo-foo plants. Some of this stuff is so over hybridized. They've hybridized the fragrance and the pollen out of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Bill, what are some of your goals now, or horticultural bucket list? I know you've kind of retooled and
well, it's been pretty tumultuous year with the move and all of that sort of stuff, because it all came about in the middle of last
sold this nursery.
And so I'm going to continue growing as long as I can and doing the markets, and then hopefully get into doing some consulting and that sort of thing, for the low mow and no mow lawns. We've grown out, native grass, prairie turf, I call it, plugs for people in various times to change out their Bermuda grass lawns. Hopefully maybe I'll get to sit down and write a little bit of stuff, Still, herbs are still a big interest of mine, and kind of pursue getting more and developing that a little bit more. I'm always about trying to find the varieties that are best for Oklahoma, and not just the latest foo-foo variety that's come from the breeders.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. I'm not interrupting, but I love Carrie Wilson's comment about what do you think of frogfruit lawns?
I love the idea. I love frog fruit.
I do too. I grew up with it.
Yeah, I don't know
Absolutely.
how the frog fruit would do as in the full sun though, unless it got a lot of water. I think it would probably need, be something that you could replace your fescue with in the shade areas. And yes, I do grow it.
Yeah. Sharon McAllister is asking Bill if Texas sedge is a native in Oklahoma City metropolitan area.
I know it's native to parts of Oklahoma. I can't say for sure. And that was one of the things, when we had that, I had a bunch of the Carex texensis in the greenhouses when we had that 14 below last year, and I lost all of it. Now, if had it been planted in the ground, I think it would have been fine, but this was in plug trays in a greenhouse where I didn't have any heat, and I lost it. So I've got to rebuild my stock on the varieties of Carex that I had, that I was working with. So, yeah, I think it would work.
Yeah.
Connie says she has a frog fruit lawn in full sun, and okay. Does it take a lot of water, Connie? Cool. Yeah, that's good to know. Now we grow a lot of frog fruit, and got it planted around where we have it planted is generally kind of shady, so I've just never even thought about putting it in the full sun. And it is spongy as it gets. When it gets real thick and matted down, you could probably be a good place to take a nap.
Yeah. Excellent.
What have you got planned for this year, Mike? You're going to continue with the Shackelford series?
Yes, we're going to continue at least through December of this year, but as I preface this as well, we're doing some in-person events around the state, which they can find on our website. And so I'm trying to go to the people anywhere from the Panhandle down towards southeastern Oklahoma. So we're trying to hit the whole state. And so, yeah, it's going to be a really good year ahead. Absolutely.
I like that idea. And we started doing something like that with Okies for Monarchs last year to try to have some regional events to get at, away from Tulsa and Oklahoma City. We had a nice event down in Ardmore last year. Would like to get out west to say Lawton, possibly, Clinton. Of course, they've got Sunshine Nursery out there, so they may not need anything else, but possibly Woodward, Enid, and then down way southeast when you get down to Durant, McAllister.
Yeah. Horner's asking to come to El Reno, Bill. So
I'll be in Oklahoma City, so we'll be far.
Yeah, we're huddling, by the way, a couple of times with Sunshine Nursery, just coincidentally in Clinton area this year. So I'm looking forward to hopefully catching up with all of you there. You can see those dates again on our website. Not to mention we'll have them online here in a few months as well, professing about 3 or 4 generations now of bee breaks. So it'll be quite a day, or days rather. So
yeah, that sounds interesting.
Very good. Bill, are you I should know this. Are you still doing some adapted non-natives? I've lost track of you, and I'm sorry that I don't know that. I know you and I were talking Bougainvillea not very long ago, so I suspect you are, but
yes. Like I say, I've had to cut down on a lot of, for the herbaceous stuff. I'm still growing Bougainvillea, and one of these days we need to figure out something out, kind of expand on that story that I told you about the Bougainvilleas.
Yeah.
And but I'm not doing a lot of other stuff anymore, because I just don't have the room to do it. We'll have a pretty good selection of Bougainvillea. I'm growing a handful of annuals, mostly because with the downsize, it to a point we had to put some more. I order in unrooted cuttings, from another grower and then grow them on, and so I had to throw in a few extras there to get the minimum.
I see. Yeah, thanks, Donna. She put up a link for her Sclepius fact sheet.
Great, great. Okay, there's Kathy Chernowsik is she's asking what website.
Yeah. Sorry. I could type it in here in a second. Let me just do that. I should have done that earlier. It's the one that you used to get on initially, but I don't expect you to remember that necessarily because it's my little world. Let me see if I type that right. Yeah.
I just posted it on there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The chat.
Awesome. Thank you. I did too. So now we're doubly covered. Thanks, Carla. What else, folks? It's been so much fun. Bill, you're easier on me than Marilyn Stewart. She usually scolds me at least once or twice during these type of presentations. I kind of feel left out, you know. You've gone too easy on me today. So I'm a big Marilyn Stewart fan, as you well know. So
well, she's a dear friend, but she can be pretty mean when she wants to.
you think? No, I'm a big Marilyn fan. I'm kidding, sort of. So yeah.
Well, I don't know how far and wide this news has gone. This is but any of you folks out there that knew Jaylene Riley from Drumright Utopia Gardens, she did all the the big festivals and shows and farmers markets in Tulsa. I guess it was yesterday her husband Dennis passed away, so be thinking of her.
Yeah. Bill, take a look. You just got a nice compliment from Carrie Wilson there. Thank you, Carrie, for sharing that.
Carrie, appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Look forward. Maybe we'll meet you somewhere down the road if you'll come to one of our festivals or something.
Just in case some people can't see it, Carrie's working to support pollinators and native plants when she graduates, one of her goals. So I love it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done with the natives, selections wise, and even they seem to be doing pretty well with the switchgrass, coming up with new varieties that they can patent these days. But
yeah,
there's probably some others out there that we could be working on.
Yeah, Bill, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but I've been fascinated, and I actually touched on it when you invited me to lecture for OMPS a couple threads anywhere sometime pre-COVID. This whole issue of nativars, and I really think most of them are going to be okay with our pollinators, but certainly not all of them. That's something that we need to get a better handle on.
Yeah, and that brings up a point that I just thought of. What we've seen is it's just kind of a case-by-case basis, but where I have seen some issues, and I'm trying to think of this. Sometimes when you get plants like the penstemon, I can't think of the name of the one that has the bronze leaf. There's a penstemon. Anyway, penstemons are great native plants. They're great for the pollinators, but some of these varieties of plants where they found a sport that they've got a bronze colored or a chocolate colored leaf, we've noticed at the nursery that the insects, pollinators don't go to those plants. And we've wondered if it's a color spectrum thing and whether they can't see them because of the different color leaves. And this is just something that one of the guys that was working for me noticed one day when we were pulling orders. And we had several species of penstemons there with this one with the bronze leaf. And there were absolutely no insects going to this plant. So that's something that could be researched.
Yeah. I know that's been looked at because Dr. Kristen Baum here on campus lectured on that not that very topic, but alluded to that, and I learned a lot from her. I need to go back and watch her YouTube on that. And that's just a reminder to everybody that all these again are at your viewing pleasure. Bills will be right in about 3 weeks if you want to re-listen this 20 times. But yeah, Dr. Baum did talk about that very issue about colors, I think. And where my mind was going, Bill, is when we jack them up so much where they're, doubled and triple petaled, and the insects can't physically reach.
Yes, they can't get their proboscis down in there to the nectar.
That's right. They just cannot make a connection. Yeah.
Yeah, that does happen.
Oh, so Barbara Klein is reminding us, or actually educating me, that I think Dr. Talmy now will be rescheduled for mid-August. Pioneer Library System is interested in sharing as a sponsor, so at least one of his talks will be south of Oklahoma City. Thank you, Barbara. I was behind. I stayed in touch with Haldor Howard on this, and I'm behind on that, so that's good to know. He is super passionate. Yeah, met him at the Western in Kansas City, which sadly has been wiped out because of COVID, but back in the day, yeah. It's good to know. Bill, just a random thought. I know both your boys are off doing their own thing. Did they have any interest though of jumping in at least part-time with mom and dad? Or I've never.
No, I probably burned them out when they were pretty young, and they both decided to go on and get other careers. My youngest is an engineer. He's got his engineering degree from Oklahoma State, and he lives in Broken Arrow with his new bride. And my oldest is a firefighter. He went to OSU OKC and took their firefighting course there and all the EMT stuff. So he's a fireman here in Norman. So they both got other careers, and that was part of the decision why to get out. If they had wanted to stay in the business, we would have probably carried on, but there wasn't any really a need to. Come summertime, whenever spring season's over with, July and August, we plan to go see the country. I want to get out. When you're nurseries and dairies are a lot alike, it's really hard to get away, and I love to travel, and I want to go see some places that I've already seen, and go to see some places that haven't seen. I have a cousin who retired from a barbecue restaurant about 15 years ago, and him and his wife live in the American Virgin Islands, and he lives on a catamaran, and has a second catamaran that he operates like a bed and breakfast. So I want to go down there and see Cousin Ray one of these days.
Absolutely. That's your favorite cousin, by the way, right there. keep him on your good side.
Yeah, sure enough.
And you promised to fish with me after July 4th. Don't forget about that either.
That's right. Yeah.
Another commitment.
We'll get off down there to Texoma, or we can go down to my home place and fish farm ponds if you want to.
Either or. I know we just got something. Donna says, Bill, sounds like a perfect plan. Yeah, I agree, Donna. I agree.
Well, and I love the Rocky Mountains. That's my go-to place anytime I get a chance to travel, and just hike and get out there and see the plant material there. It's always interesting to me. But
well, Bill, we appreciate your time today and your effort and messing with us, and look forward to maybe run into you on some of your gigs this summer, if not later date, and hope we can all stay in touch. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And again, remind your friends that didn't have a moment to jump in today that Bill's talk will be ready sometime in April. It'll be up on YouTube, so they can listen to him then. Bill, thanks again. And
thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Stay in touch, everybody. Yeah, we'll see you all back in April. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.